He thought it was a repair mission. She made it a night he'd never forget. Asterisk. The unexpected assignment. Jake Morrison wiped grease from his hands as he stood beneath the massive cooling tower of the Riverside power plant. The evening shift was supposed to be routine maintenance, nothing more than checking valve pressure and replacing worn gaskets. At 28, Jake had spent 6 years as a senior technician, and he knew every pipe, every wire, every mechanical heartbeat of this facility. "Morrison, you've got a special assignment tonight," called out his supervisor, Pete Rodriguez, as he approached with a clipboard. "Corporate's sending someone down to inspect the new turbine installation. You're to give them the full tour and assist with any technical questions." Jake frowned. Corporate inspections usually happen during day shifts with multiple supervisors present. Tonight, it's almost 8 p.m. Who's coming down? Some hotshot engineer from the main office. Name's Victoria Sterling. Apparently, she's the one who designed the new efficiency protocols we've been implementing. Pete handed him the work order. "Play nice, Morrison. This one's got pull with the executives." Jake glanced at the paperwork. Victoria Sterling, lead. Systems engineer, Corporate Development Division. The name was familiar. He'd seen it on several technical memos that had crossed his desk over the past few months. Her innovations had increased their plant's efficiency by 12%, saving the company millions in operational costs. 20 minutes later, Jake heard the distinctive sound of high heels clicking against the concrete floor of the main corridor. He turned from the control panel he'd been calibrating and felt his breath catch in his throat. Victoria Sterling was nothing like the middle-aged corporate engineer he'd expected. She was stunning in a way that seemed almost out of place in the industrial setting. Her dark auburn hair was pulled back in a professional bun, but a few strands had escaped to frame her face. She wore a fitted charcoal gray suit that somehow managed to look both business appropriate and elegantly feminine. Her green eyes were sharp and intelligent, scanning the facility with the practiced gaze of someone who understood exactly what she was looking at. "You must be Jake Morrison," she said, extending her hand. Her voice was warm, but carried an undertone of authority. "I'm Victoria Sterling. Thank you for staying late to show me around." Jake shook her hand, noting how her grip was firm and confident. "No problem. Though I have to admit, I'm curious why you're here so late. Most corporate visits happen during business hours." Victoria smiled, and Jake noticed how it transformed her entire face. "I prefer to see facilities when they're running. Normal operations. Daytime visits tend to be too orchestrated. You get a better sense of how things really work when people aren't putting on a show." She wasn't wrong. Jake had witnessed enough corporate dog and pony shows to appreciate her approach. "Fair enough. Where would you like to start?" "The new turbine installation. I want to see how the efficiency modifications are performing in real-world conditions." Victoria pulled out a tablet and stylus. "I've been monitoring the data remotely, but there's no substitute for direct observation." Jake led her through the facility, explaining the various systems and their current operational status. Victoria asked intelligent questions, often focusing on details that most visitors would overlook. She wasn't just going through the motions. She genuinely understood the technology at a level that impressed him. "The pressure readings on Turbine 3 are running about 2% higher than our models predicted," she observed, studying her tablet. "Have you noticed any performance issues?" "Actually, yes. Nothing major, but there's been a slight vibration in the housing unit. I was planning to investigate it tomorrow." Jake was surprised that she'd picked up on the anomaly from remote data. "Mind if we take a look now?" "I have some theories about what might be causing it." Jake checked his watch. It was already past 9, and his shift officially ended at 10. But something about Victoria's enthusiasm was infectious. "Sure, let me grab some tools." As they walked toward the turbine housing, Victoria began explaining her theory about harmonic resonance in the new blade design. Jake found himself drawn not just to her technical expertise, but to the passion in her voice when she talked about her work. This wasn't just a job for her. It was clearly something she loved. "Here," Victoria said, pointing to a specific section of the housing. "If I'm right, the vibration should be most pronounced right about ... She placed her hand on the metal surface and closed her eyes, concentrating. "There. Do you feel that?" Jake moved closer, placing his hand near hers. On the housing. The vibration was subtle but definitely present. "You're right. How did you know exactly where to look?" Victoria opened her eyes and found Jake standing much closer than before. For a moment, neither of them moved. The industrial noise of the plant seemed to fade into the background as they looked at each other. "Experience," she said softly, her professional composure slipping slightly. "And maybe a little bit of luck." Sparks in the dark, the turbine housing problem turned out to be more complex than either of them had anticipated. What started as a simple inspection became an impromptu engineering challenge that had them both completely absorbed. Victoria's theoretical knowledge, combined with Jake's hands-on experience, created a synergy that surprised them both. "Try adjusting the blade angle by 0.3 degrees, Victoria suggested, her voice slightly breathless from leaning over the control panel. "The computational model suggests it should eliminate the harmonic frequency." Jake made the adjustment with practiced precision. "That's it," he said as the subtle vibration disappeared. "How did you calculate that so quickly?" "I've been thinking about this problem for weeks. I just needed someone with the practical skills to test my theory." Victoria straightened up, realizing how close they'd been working together. "You really know this equipment inside and out. 6 years of troubleshooting will do that to you." Jake saved the settings and turned to face her. "Though I have to say, I've never had a corporate engineer who could actually diagnose problems in the field. Most of us are better with computers than with actual machinery," Victoria admitted. "I'm a bit of an anomaly in that regard." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, both aware that their work was essentially complete, but neither seeming eager to end the evening. The plant's night shift had settled into its quiet routine, leaving them essentially alone in their section of the facility. "I should probably head back and file my report," Victoria said, though she made no move to leave. "Probably," Jake agreed. "Also staying put. Can I ask you something? Why are you really here tonight? I mean, you could have sent any number of people to check on the turbine installation." Victoria hesitated, as if debating how much to reveal. "Honestly, I've been watching the performance data from this plant for months. Your efficiency ratings, your maintenance records, your problem-solving approaches. This facility consistently outperforms every other plant in the company, and I wanted to understand why." "And it's you," she said simply. "The way you anticipate problems, the way you maintain equipment, the way you adapt to unexpected situations. You're not just following procedures, you're thinking." Jake felt heat rise in his cheeks. "I just do my job." "No, you don't. You do your job better than anyone else in the company. I've been hoping to meet you for months." The admission hung in the air between them. Victoria seemed surprised by her own honesty, and Jake wasn't sure how to respond. The attraction he'd felt all evening suddenly made more sense. This wasn't just a routine corporate visit. So this whole inspection, he began, was partly an excuse to meet you, Victoria finished. "Though the turbine problem was real, and I am genuinely impressed by your work." Jake stepped closer. "And now that you've met me?" Victoria's professional composure cracked completely. "Now I'm thinking that this is probably the most inappropriate situation I've ever found myself in. You're a plant employee, I'm corporate management, and we're alone in a facility after hours. Inappropriate how? Because I can't stop thinking." about how much I want to kiss you right now. The honesty of her statement hit Jake like a physical force. He'd been fighting the same impulse all evening, but hearing her voice, it made it impossible to ignore. Victoria ... I know it's crazy. I know it's unprofessional. I know it could cause problems for both of us. She took a step back, trying to rebuild her composure. I should go. Wait. Jake reached out and gently caught her arm. What if I told you I've been thinking the same thing? Victoria's eyes widened. You have? From the moment you walked into the plant. You're brilliant, you're beautiful, and you understand my work better than anyone I've ever met. So yes, I've been thinking about kissing you too. For a moment, they stood frozen, the weight of their mutual admission settling between them. Then Victoria made a decision that would change everything. The security cameras don't cover the maintenance tunnels, she said quietly. Jake's heart rate spiked. No, they don't. And the night shift supervisor makes his rounds every hour on the hour. He just finished his 9:30 check. Victoria stepped closer, closing the distance between them. So we have time. Time for what? Instead of answering, Victoria reached up and pulled the pins from her hair, letting it fall in waves around her shoulders. The transformation was striking. The professional corporate engineer was replaced by a woman who was suddenly much more approachable, much more real. Time to see what happens when we stop overthinking this, she said. Jake didn't need any more encouragement. He closed the remaining distance between them and cupped her face in his hands. Her skin was soft and warm, and when she looked up at him, he saw that her professional mask had completely disappeared. This is insane, he whispered. I know, she whispered back. We could both get in serious trouble. I know. And I don't care. Anymore. Neither do I. When their lips met, it was like completing an electrical circuit. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, but quickly deepened as they both gave in to the attraction that had been building all evening. Victoria's arms wrapped around his neck, and Jake pulled her closer, marveling at how perfectly she fit against him. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Wow, Victoria said softly. Yeah, Jake agreed. Wow, the maintenance tunnel was dimly lit by emergency lighting, creating an intimate atmosphere that seemed worlds away from the industrial environment just outside. Victoria had led Jake here with a confidence that surprised him, but now that they were alone, she seemed suddenly uncertain. I've never done anything like this before, she admitted, leaning against the concrete wall. I don't usually make impulsive decisions. What changed? Jake asked, moving closer, but giving her space to retreat if she wanted. You, she said simply. Meeting you, talking with you, working with you. It felt like everything I'd been missing in my life suddenly made sense. Jake understood exactly what she meant. His job was usually solitary, methodical, predictable. But tonight, with Victoria, everything felt electric and alive in a way he hadn't experienced in years. I need you to know something, Victoria continued. Whatever happens between us tonight is not just because of the moment. I've been reading your maintenance reports for months, studying your problem-solving methods, admiring your work from a distance. You're not just some random encounter for me. The revelation sent warmth through Jake's chest. You've been watching me that long? Not watching, studying, learning from you. Victoria smiled shyly. I may have requested this assignment specifically to meet you, and I thought you were just another corporate suit coming to check up on us. I am a corporate suit, Victoria laughed. I just happen to be a corporate suit who's been completely fascinated by a certain plant technician. Jake stepped closer, until he could see the flecks of gold in her green eyes. What exactly did you have in mind when you requested this assignment? Honestly, I thought we'd shake hands, discuss efficiency metrics, and maybe grab coffee afterward. I didn't expect. She gestured between them. This feeling like I've been waiting my whole life to meet you. The intensity of her words matched exactly what Jake had been feeling. He reached out and gently traced the line of her jaw with his fingertip. Victoria, I need you to be sure about this. Because if we cross this line, I don't think I'll be able to go back to pretending you're just another corporate engineer. I don't want to go back, she whispered. I want to see where this leads, even though it's complicated. Especially because it's complicated. Victoria reached up and placed her hand over his, pressing his palm against her cheek. I've spent my entire career playing it safe, following rules, avoiding risks. But standing here with you feels like the first real thing I've done in years. Jake leaned down and kissed her forehead gently. You realize we're in a maintenance tunnel in a power plant at 10 o'clock at night. I know exactly where we are, Victoria said, her eyes sparkling with mischief. And I can't think of anywhere else I'd rather be. Not very romantic. Are you kidding? You just solved the turbine vibration problem using nothing but intuition and experience. If that's not romantic, I don't know what is. Jake laughed, surprised by how easily Victoria could shift between serious and playful. You have a very unique definition of romance. I have a very unique definition of a lot of things. Victoria's hands moved to his chest, her fingers tracing the outline of his work shirt. For instance, I think there's something incredibly attractive about a man who truly understands his craft. And I think there's something incredibly attractive about a woman who's brilliant enough to improve an entire power plant's efficiency from behind a desk. Flatterer, truth-teller. Victoria's hands moved up to his shoulders, and Jake could feel the warmth of her touch even through his shirt. The maintenance tunnel suddenly felt very small and very private. Jake? Yeah? Kiss me again. This time, when their lips met, there was no hesitation. The kiss was deeper, more urgent, filled with the kind of passion that had been building between them all evening. Victoria's hands tangled in his hair, and Jake pulled her closer, losing himself in the feel of her against him. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. We should probably get back, Victoria said, though she made no move to leave his arms. Probably, Jake agreed, also staying put. The security guard will be making his rounds soon, in about 15 minutes, and I should file my report. You should. Neither of them moved. Victoria? Yes? I know this is crazy, and I know it's complicated, but I don't want this to be just one night. Victoria's eyes searched his face. What are you saying? I'm saying that I want to see you again. Away from the plant, away from work, away from all the reasons why this should be impossible. Like a date? Like a date. Victoria smiled, and Jake felt his heart skip. I'd like that. But you should know that dating me comes with complications. What kind of complications? I travel frequently for work. I have a demanding schedule, and I'm technically your superior in the corporate hierarchy. I can handle complicated. Can you handle the fact that I might get transferred to another facility next month? Jake's stomach dropped. Transferred where? Denver, Phoenix, maybe Atlanta. The company wants me to implement the efficiency protocols at other plants. For how long? Could be permanent, could be temporary. I won't know until next week. Jake felt the reality of their situation, settling over them like a cold weight. So this really could be just one night. It could be, Victoria said softly. Or it could be the beginning of something worth fighting for. Which do you want it to be? Victoria looked at him for a long moment, her expression serious. I want it to be the beginning, but I need to know that you're willing to fight for it too. Victoria, I've spent 6 years in this plant, working the same shifts, solving the same problems, living the same routine. Tonight, with you, I feel more alive than I have in years. If you think I'm going to let you walk away without a fight, You don't know me very well. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me that whatever happens with the transfer, whatever complications arise, you'll give us a real chance. Jake cupped her face in his hands. I promise. Do you promise the same? I promise. The sound of footsteps in the main corridor sent them both scrambling back to the turbine housing, trying to look professional despite their disheveled appearance. Victoria quickly pulled her hair back into its bun while Jake grabbed his tools and pretended to be checking readings on the control panel. Everything all right in here? Called out Pete Rodriguez as he approached with his security checklist. Just finishing up the diagnostic, Jake replied, his voice steadier than he felt. Ms. Sterling wanted to verify the turbine adjustments. Pete nodded, making a note on his clipboard. Corporate's really putting you through the ringer tonight, huh, Morrison? It's been educational, Victoria said, her professional demeanor firmly back in place. Mr. Morrison has been extremely helpful in identifying the source of the vibration issue. Good to hear? You two about done? I need to lock down this section for the night. Jake and Victoria exchanged a quick glance. We're finished, Victoria said. I have everything I need for my report. As Pete continued his rounds, Victoria and Jake walked back toward the main entrance in relative silence, both acutely aware of how their dynamic had shifted. The easy intimacy of the maintenance tunnel felt like a dream now, replaced by the reality of their professional relationship. My car's in the visitor parking area, Victoria said as they reached the security checkpoint. I'm parked in the employee lot, Jake replied. So I guess this is where we ... Jake. Victoria stopped walking and turned to face him. What I said in there, about wanting this to be the beginning of something, I meant it. I meant it too. Then we need to figure out how to make it work. Victoria pulled out her phone and handed it to him. Put your number in there. I'll call you tomorrow after I know more about the transfer situation. Jake entered his contact information, his hand surprisingly steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through him. Victoria, can I ask you something? Of course. Why? Me? I mean, you're brilliant, successful, beautiful. You could have anyone. Why take a chance on a plant technician? Victoria smiled, and Jake saw a vulnerability in her expression that she'd kept hidden all evening. Because when I read your maintenance reports, I see someone who cares about his work the way I care about mine. Because when you explained the turbine systems tonight, your eyes lit up the same way mine do when I'm designing new protocols. Because you're the first person I've met who understands that there's beauty in making things work perfectly. Is that really enough? It's everything, Victoria said simply. The rest is just details we'll figure out as we go. Jake's phone buzzed with a text message. He glanced at it and frowned. That's weird. Emergency maintenance call for the downtown substation. They want me there in 30 minutes. At this hour? Power grid emergencies don't keep regular hours. Jake looked at Victoria apologetically. I'm sorry, but I have to go. They wouldn't call me unless it was serious. Of course. Go. Victoria squeezed his hand briefly. But Jake, be careful. And call me when you're done, no matter how late it is. I will. As Jake drove toward the substation, his mind was still reeling from the evening's events. Victoria Sterling had walked into his life like a force of nature, turning his predictable world upside down in the span of a few hours. The rational part of his mind kept insisting that pursuing a relationship with her was impractical, even dangerous for his career. But the larger part of him didn't care about the practical considerations anymore. The downtown substation was buzzing with activity when Jake arrived. Emergency vehicles lined the street, and he could see the power company's crisis management team setting up a command center in the parking lot. Morrison, thank God you're here, called out Charlie Watts, Emergency Response Coordinator. We've got a situation that's got everyone stumped. What's going on? Power surge took out 3 transformers simultaneously about an hour ago. But here's the weird part. There's no external cause we can identify. No weather, no equipment failure, no human error. The surge seemed to originate from within the grid itself. Jake studied the diagnostic readings Charlie handed him. The power signature was unlike anything he'd seen before. Too consistent to be random. Too complex to be a simple equipment failure. Has anyone checked the new efficiency protocols? Jake asked, a cold suspicion forming in his mind. What protocols? The ones implemented 3 weeks ago. The corporate optimization program designed by... Jake paused, realizing he was about to mention Victoria's name. Designed by the main office. Charlie's expression darkened. You think the new protocols caused this? I think we need to look at the correlation between the implementation timeline and tonight's surge. Jake was already moving toward the control room. If I'm right, we might have a much bigger problem than 3 blown transformers. As Jake began analyzing the data, he couldn't shake the feeling that his evening with Victoria had just become infinitely more complicated. If her efficiency protocols had caused tonight's power surge, it would mean her work, the work she was so passionate about, had a fundamental flaw that could affect the entire power grid. And if that was the case, their budding relationship is about to face its first real test. Morrison, Charlie called out urgently. You need to see this. The power signature is showing up at 2 other substations across the city. Whatever's happening, it's spreading. Jake felt his blood run cold. This wasn't just a local equipment failure. It was a system-wide problem that could cascade through the entire regional power grid. And at the center of it all might be the work of the woman he just promised to fight for. Get me a direct line to corporate headquarters, Jake said, his mind racing through the implications. And Charlie? You might want to prepare for a very long night. At 2:47 a.m., Jake finally understood the full scope of the crisis. The power surges weren't random. They were the result of a harmonic feedback loop created by Victoria's efficiency protocols interacting with older equipment in unexpected ways. The same brilliant optimization that had improved his plant's performance was causing catastrophic failures in substations with legacy infrastructure. His phone had been buzzing with calls from the emergency response team, corporate executives, and finally, Victoria herself. She'd been monitoring the situation from her hotel room, her laptop connected to the company's diagnostic systems. Jake, I need you to know that I had no idea this could happen. Victoria's voice was tight with stress when he finally answered her call. The protocols tested perfectly in our simulations. I know, Jake said, stepping away from the chaos of the command center. But simulations don't account for 40-year-old transformers with modified wiring configurations. How bad is it? 6 substations affected so far. Rolling blackouts across 3 districts. And it's spreading. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. I can fix this. I know I can. But I need access to the central control systems. Corporate's not going to give you access. They're talking about shutting down the efficiency protocols. Entirely. That would be a disaster. The protocols are working perfectly in 90% of the grid. Shutting them down would cause more problems than it solves. Jake looked back at the command center, where exhausted technicians were trying to manually reroute power around the affected substations. So what do you suggest? Meet me at the main plant. I think I can modify the protocols to account for the legacy equipment, but I need someone who understands the old systems intimately. Victoria, if you're wrong about this, if we make things worse ... then we'll both be finished. I know the risk, Jake, but I also know that I can't fix this alone. I need you. Jake felt the weight of the decision settling on his shoulders. Going against corporate orders to help Victoria could end his career. But the alternative, watching the power grid collapse while a solution was within reach. was unthinkable. I'll meet you there in 20 minutes. The main plant was eerily quiet when Jake arrived. Victoria's rental car was already in the parking lot, and he found her in the main control room, surrounded by laptops and diagnostic equipment she'd somehow acquired in the middle of the night. "How did you get all this equipment?" Jake asked. "I called in every favor I had with the corporate tech team," Victoria replied without looking up from her screen. "I've been modeling the harmonic interactions for the past 3 hours, and I think I can create a buffer protocol that will prevent the feedback loop without sacrificing efficiency. But it requires precise calibration for each substation's unique characteristics." Jake studied the data on her screen. The solution was elegant in its complexity, a series of micro-adjustments that would allow the old and new systems to work in harmony. "This is brilliant. But you're talking about reprogramming the entire grid in real time." "I know, and I can't do it alone." "What do you need from me?" Victoria finally looked up from her laptop, and Jake saw exhaustion and determination in equal measure in her eyes. "I need you to walk me through the specifications of every substation that's been affected. I need to understand the quirks, the modifications, the things that wouldn't show up in the official documentation. That's going to take hours. We have hours. The grid can hold together until morning if we work fast." Jake pulled up a chair next to Victoria, and they dove into the technical details. As they worked, Jake found himself marveling at Victoria's ability to synthesize complex information and translate it into practical solutions. Her theoretical knowledge, combined with his hands-on experience, created a synergy that was both professional and deeply personal. "Try increasing the buffer delay on substation 7 by 0.2 seconds, Jake suggested, watching the simulation results on Victoria's screen. "That should eliminate the resonance frequency," Victoria agreed, making the adjustment. "You're seeing patterns in this data that I completely missed, and you're creating solutions that I never would have thought of. We make a good team." Victoria smiled, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her since the crisis began. "We do, don't we?" By 6 a.m., they had successfully modified the protocols for all affected substations. The power grid was stabilizing, and the rolling blackouts were ending. Victoria's fingers flew across the keyboard as she implemented the final adjustments, with Jake monitoring the system responses in real time. "That's it," Jake said, watching the last warning indicator turn green. "Power's back online across the entire grid." Victoria leaned back in her chair, finally allowing herself to relax. "We did it. You did it. I just provided the local knowledge." "No, Jake, we did it together. I never could have solved this without you." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both exhausted but satisfied. The crisis was over, but Jake knew that the real test of their relationship was just beginning. "So what happens now?" he asked. "Now I have to face a very angry corporate board and explain how my efficiency protocols almost brought down the regional power grid. And us?" Victoria reached over and took his hand. "That depends. Are you still willing to fight for this, even after seeing what my work can do when it goes wrong?" Jake squeezed her hand. "Victoria, I've just spent the last 6 hours watching you solve an impossible problem under incredible pressure. I've seen you take responsibility for your mistakes and work tirelessly to fix them. Why would that make me want to fight for us less? Because I might not have a career after today. The company might decide I'm too much of a liability. Then we'll figure it out together. Remember what you said about being willing to fight for something worth having." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "I remember. Well, after tonight, I'm more convinced than ever that you're worth fighting for." As the sun rose over the city, casting golden light through the control room windows, Victoria and Jake held each other close. They had survived their first crisis together, and both knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as a team. The repair mission had indeed become something unforgettable, the beginning of a love story that would prove as enduring as the power grid they had saved together. Victoria? Yes, I love you. I love you too, Jake. And I promise you, we're going to make this work. Outside, the city was waking up, completely unaware that two people had just spent the night saving their power grid and finding each other. In the process, it was, Jake thought, the perfect metaphor for love itself, invisible to most, but absolutely essential to everything that mattered. The end.